In this video tutorial, I'll be teaching you how to make a square fishtail braided bracelet. If you need to slow down the video, you can click the gear underneath the video and change the playback speed. For this demonstration, I will be using 24 strands of 20 gauge copper wire, approximately 15-16 inches long. I'm taking the copper wires and attaching them to a piece of painter's tape, bundling that together, and then clamping it into the clamp assembly on the Flatwearable wire weaver. Then I am bundling 3 wires together for a total of 8 bundles. I find that bundling my sections together makes for weaving braiding much easier. When you're working with multiple wires like this, anything you can do to make it a little bit easier for yourself is definitely beneficial. So just straightening each of the wires using a nylon plier, and then bundling them together with a small piece of masking tape. Once everything is bundled together, we're going to start the braiding. You're going to separate your bundles so you have 4 on either side. Doesn't matter which side that you start with. I'm starting with the right. I'm taking the outermost bundle, going underneath 5 of the bundles, around 2 of them, and then joining that strand and allowing it to become the first strand, the first bundle in the 4. So you're taking the outermost bundle, going underneath 5, back over 2, and now it is the first bundle in your 4 section of strands, and then just doing the opposite on the other side. Under 5, over 2, and then allowing it to become the first strand rather than the last strand. And you're just going to continue to do this process all the way down. Under 5, back over 2, move to the other side, under 5, back over 2. Keeping the bundles taped together makes this process much easier. Keeps your wires straight and organized. And as you go along, you can see how it makes a really nice, substantial box braid. And you're just going to continue this process all the way to the end, or as far as you would like to go. The wire is already soft, so it was not annealed ahead of time. It will become harder to move the wires as you go along, but I didn't find that it was too difficult to do this without annealing. And I wanted to show this without any extra measures such as annealing or soldering. There's a lot of people who are beginners, and this is a great beginner's project. And I'm just squaring everything up on a swage block. If you don't have a swage block, you can do this on a steel bench block or any really firm surface. And that squares everything up, and it compacts the wires. So you have everything nice and tight. You want your wires to be nice and tight and compact, so when you go to trim off the excess, the wires don't spring open. Using the Kaiba flush cutters, These are excellent, excellent wire cutters, especially for heavy wire. We carry those on our website. You can check the description box below the video for a link to a lot of jewelry making tools. These caps are awesome. They come in a number of different sizes, and you can find them on Amazon. So just trimming everything off, all the excess off, and test fitting the caps. You want to make sure the caps fit prior to putting any glue on them. Soldering is always my preferred method when it comes to making wire jewelry or metal jewelry of any kind, but I do want to show a very simple and easy way to do it for those that don't have the soldering skills or the ability to solder because they just don't have the equipment or the space to do it. So I took them all and dipped them in liver of sulfur, and that darkened everything up. And what I'm doing now is removing the liver of sulfur on the high relief areas, and that leaves darkness in the recessed areas. I prefer doing patina on the majority of my silver and copper work. I love the fact that it gives it more dimension and more interest. So I'm working on 3 bracelets at once. One is a single strand with 16 gauge wire. One is triple strand with 20 gauge wire, and one is a quad strand with 20 gauge wire. I'm going to glue the caps on to the ends of each of the bracelet using JB Quick Weld. This is a 2-part epoxy, and you're going to mix equal amounts of both the hardener and the epoxy. I just have a little scrap of acrylic that I'm putting little dabs on, and then using a plastic spatula and mixing everything very thoroughly. You want to have these two mixed thoroughly. If you do not have them mixed thoroughly, your chances of having them set up, having the epoxy set up properly, is going to be much less. You're not gonna get a good setup of the epoxy if everything is not mixed thoroughly. So just applying the epoxy to the ends of the wire, kind of just pushing it down in the wires. Doing just a little bit of adjusting with the nylon pliers. And putting caps on all of them and using the spreader clamp, cheap, inexpensive clamp from Harbor Freight. I am clamping the bracelet in place, and I'm going to set the bracelets aside for a minimum of 4 to 6 hours, and it is preferable to leave these clamped overnight. Using an oval wood bracelet mandrel, shaping the bracelets around the mandrel, and then using a plastic hammer, tapping it down. This not only shapes the bracelet, but it also work hardens it and makes the bracelet stiff so it is not floppy and will hold its shape. Anytime you're using a tapered mandrel, you want to flip the piece over, whether it's bracelet or ring. Any tapered mandrel, you want to flip your piece over and then do the shaping again. So I'm going to continue to do the same thing on all 3 bracelets. This one is a little bit smaller than the others, plus it's heavier with the addition of a lot of wires. So I'm not getting quite enough bend where the caps are. So I'm going to use some nylon pliers and just turn those ends a little bit more. And shaping the last one now. If you are shaping by hand, you do want to make sure that you tap the bracelet in order to work harden it. And after I formed the bracelets, I decided that I wanted to remove a little more of the liver of sulfur, reveal a little more of the copper, the shiny copper, and I used some 000 steel wool. And this is something you can find at pretty much any hardware store and dozens of places online. If you would prefer a high polished look, you can put the bracelets in a tumbler with stainless steel shot and a burnishing compound. You can also buff with a compound on a Dremel or a bench buffer. For these, I was looking for a satiny finish, and that is why I chose to sand them. And there you have 3 bracelets with different looks, because they are using different wires, different gauges, and different amounts of wire. That is your single strand there, and that is the triple strand that we just finished. They make really absolutely gorgeous bracelets and so easy to do. This is one in sterling. The end caps were made with some spiral wire that I made into jump rings and then finished with a flower for an end cap. If you have any questions, please post them and I would be happy to answer.